attendance for Indiana Fever games. Are you kidding me? WNBA draft, games on ABC, ESPN, television ratings. She's directly responsible. And people were resenting her for it, like she was the cause of the problems that they had for the lack of recognition. No, she just happened to be born white. That's it. Caitlin Clark hasn't spoken against anybody. She hasn't assisted in denying anybody else the privileges they deserve. If anything, she's tried to provide assistance. A rising tide lifts all boats. She's trying to be the rising tide that lifts the boat.
Seems like there's more drama unfolding from the Kayla Clark saga during her final preseason game. The return of Caitlin Clark is eagerly awaited, or I'll be left stunned. Seriously, it's anticipated. I doubt she'll let that opportunity slip away. I'm all about Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has returned, along with referees who seem to have gotten their qualifications from a random source. If you thought last season's referee controversies were over, think again. She's dropping 30 points while the referees seem to be losing their grasp.
And it looked like there is more drama coming out of the Caitlin Clark pipeline with her final preseason game.
Immediate investigation is needed. We're witnessing how Caitlin Clark is treated, and there's no excuse for not protecting your star player. Without Caitlin Clark, arenas won't sell out, and TV viewership wouldn't be what it is today. Everyone tuning in because it's essential viewing, but the treatment she's receiving is glaring. You know what's more challenging than defending Caitlin Clark in the WNBA? Finding a referee who actually sees the game unfold, because here we go again.
I wish Caitlin Clark gets back or I can't feel my face.
Oh.
I can't feel it. Are they?
She gonna do it.
Nah, I don't think she let that just go. I'm gonna just be honest. Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark enters a WNBA game with a huge target on her back, gets roughed up like it's a WWE match from 1997, and the referees are too busy elsewhere. Maybe they thought they were signing up for something else entirely, not a professional basketball league. What we saw during the Indiana Fever versus Atlanta Dream game wasn't officiating, it was more like interpretive dance with whistles. The inconsistency of WNBA referees is glaring. A foul on one play might not be called on another.
They need to be investigated ASAP. We see what's happening with Caitlin Clark. There's no reason you shouldn't be protecting your star player, because without Caitlin Clark, there won't be no sold-out arenas. The viewership on TV would not be like it is now, where everybody's watching it because it's must-watch TV. But we are seeing how she's being treated.
This inconsistency is detrimental to the league, especially with all the talented players led by Caitlin Clark, who is arguably the most hyped player to grace the WNBA court in decades. While she's out there playing basketball, the opposing team seem to be auditioning for a role in Gladiator. She's out there doing it all, running the offense, knocking down shots, setting up teammates. Yet every time she moves, it's like she's being punished for playing well. Atlanta didn't just bring intensity, they looked like they were following a script that read one shut down Caitlin. If that fails, just hit her.
About the WNBA refs and start the video there and center it on that. The WNBA refs are not consistent. A hit to the arm on one play is a foul, and a hit to the arm on another play is not a foul. The inconsistency is really bad for this league, especially with all these players you got coming in. You got Caitlin leading it, right?
Yesterday, I covered the whole DJ Kurt situation and how physical that moment was. There was even an incident where Caitlin got poked in the eye. No whistle, no foul, nothing. That got me wondering, how many times have they ignored contact against her? It's not just once or twice. Meanwhile, Clark accidentally hits the backboard and gets slapped with a technical nothing for the hit she's taking. But a reaction, that's where they draw the line. It's like expecting a crosswalk to hand out speeding tickets. And the one time the officials actually respond, it's to give her the first technical foul of the season. She's been bumped, shoved, even tripped, and not once did the whistle blow in her favor. But she shows a hint of frustration. Suddenly, it's a problem.
What's the DJ Currington situation? Now, yesterday, I did a DJ Currington video kind of breaking down that whole thing, technical on that. They didn't call nothing on that for her poking Caitlin Clark in the eye, and that really had me thinking like, damn, they didn't call nothing on that for her poking Caitlin Clark in the eye, and that really had me thinking like, damn, how many times did they actually, drop the ball and didn't call stuff against Caitlin? Now, Caitlin got called for a technical for hitting the back of the backboard.
If this keeps up, maybe the league should install facial expression sensors. Frown too hard after getting launched into the seats? That's a tech. Right now, these referees are like characters in a scary movie who walk right past the villain like nothing's wrong. Caitlyn could get tossed into the Gatorade cooler and they'd still be yelling, "No foul, keep it moving." This situation is sparking all kinds of opinions. Some folks believe Caitlin Clark initiated contact while others insist she was being grabbed and held like a piece of luggage. But the bigger picture here goes way beyond one moment. It's about a larger issue plaguing the WNBA right now. Officiating in the league has hit a point where it feels like the referees are following rules made for a backyard wrestling match instead of professional basketball.
Clark gets her first tech.
Caitlin Clark may be the most talked about player, catching hits like she's playing in the NHL, but she's far from the only one. The difference is, she's always under the spotlight, and that should mean something. This is a player who's a powerhouse for the league, pulling in crowds, driving up this valuable asset. Instead, it looks like the strategy is to let her take as much contact as humanly possible while the people in charge turn a blind eye. The silence from the top is almost louder than the actual hits she's taking. No explanations, no public concern, no signs of leadership.
Now, I'm here to tell you, this is getting mixed reviews. Some people saying Kayla Clark pushed off. Another person is saying the other players bear hug Kayla Clark. But let's read what the caption stated. It says, the ref standing right there watching her put two hands on CC waist. If he didn't call that, he ain't calling the push off.
And the truth is, it's not just about Caitlyn. There are other players taking of growing the game includes players getting slammed around without consequences. It's time to rethink the direction right now and protect its talent, because if they don't, they're sending a clear message: deal with it or get out of the way. There seriously needs to be some accountability handed down, suspensions, fines, something to show that player safety actually matters, especially when it's around it. And let's be real, the officiating in the WNBA has somehow reached a level of universal mediocrity. It's like every team is getting hit with the same days. Maybe we should just start each game with a technical already on the board.
She's being pushed around. She's being slapped around. Sometimes she's being punched around. And the fouls just keep getting harder and harder. When are the refs going to do their job? As a matter of fact, when is the WNBA going to do their job? Because there should be some suspensions, check. There should be some fines, check. And you should be setting an example for your star player. Because God forbid this young lady gets hurt. Everything collapses for the WNBA. So give credit where it's due. Stop with the hate behavior. Start calling the calls the way it's supposed to be.
But honestly, this isn't about a single missed call or one bad night. This is a growing trend that's becoming harder to ignore. When teams realize they can't stop Caitlyn with defense, they go for contact and just hope the officials stay silent. It's not about playing hard anymore. It's about playing dirty and trusting the refs to stay blind. This stuff needs to be addressed now, not pushed aside until it's too late. The Indiana Fever have done their part. They've built a solid roster around Clark. They've brought in new leadership, and they're clearly ready to contend for a title in 2025. All that's left now is for the officiating to catch up and stop dragging the league down. We've seen this pattern before, and if it continues, it's going to cost the WNBA more than just bad headlines.
I don't want to see none of the calls being missed like we seen last year, bro. These referees have to get it together. Now, we know the Indiana Fever front office did everything they had to do, put the right pieces around Kayla Clark, make sure they make it far in the playoffs, and possibly get a WNBA championship. Well, that part is done. We got a new team. We got a new coach. They got everything they need to do to take off for the 2025 season. The only thing left is these WNBA referees. This need to be talked about, just like it was supposed to be talked about at the conclusion of that season. And I'm back on a bumper, bro. I am not letting up on them damn WNBA referees because they are the biggest haters when it comes to Caitlin Clark, bro.
And that's why I'm not letting this go. This has to stay front and center. Man, I'm not holding back on those blasted WNBA officials because they've clearly got a bone to pick with Caitlin Clark. And to the Atlanta Dream, you really showed your hand. Instead of locking down defense, you turned the court into an absurd obstacle course, with Caitlin unwittingly starring as the main hurdle. At one point, I was half expecting a buzzer to sound and someone to shout that what we witnessed wasn't basketball at at all. It was more like a stunt show. Meanwhile, the refs just stood there, unmoved, almost like they were at a modern art exhibit, nodding as if to say the raw mayhem perfectly captured today's chaotic style. It wouldn't be surprising if Caitlyn ended up suiting up in football pads, a helmet and cleats soon. Clearly, standard basketball gear isn't cutting it when she's getting body checked every few seconds. Knowing these officials, though, they'd probably slam her with a technical foul for being overly cautious or misusing protective gear.
Indiana Fever fans, we got another W in the preseason against the Atlanta Dream, 81-76. There's a lot that went on in this game. So this was a very competitive game. All the way through, they were given full court defense on Caitlin Clark for the most part of the game. The starters did sit after 3. Caitlin Clark finished with 13, 7, and 6. She could have had 12 to 15 assists. Wait until you see the highlights. She did drop a couple bombs. She hit 3 3-pointers. We did get a...
Now let's talk about the real disaster, WNBA officiating overall. If these referees were any more inconsistent, they'd be like a toddler choosing a favorite crayon. You could take a hard charge on someone and walk away clean, but if you talk back, suddenly you're painted as the mustache-twirling villain in a melodrama. On a brighter note though, Indiana Fever snagged another preseason victory over the Atlanta Dream. This game had a competitive spark from the beginning. Caitlyn was doggedly guarded with full court pressure for most of the match, and even the starters took a break after just 3 periods. Caitlyn closed the game with a stat line of 13, 7, and 6, and she could have easily pushed her assist numbers into the double digits. Just wait until you catch the highlights. She dropped some serious bombs, including 3 deep 3-pointers.
The biggest hurdles for Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever last season was the WNBA referees. Now, the front office made it their business to revamp the team, bring in more aggressive players to help them get further in the WNBA season and possibly win a WNBA championship. But before any of that stuff can even get done, we have to take a look at the misguided missile that can destroy everything this upcoming season, and that is the WNBA referees and this secret agenda. Yes, there was a secret agenda against Caitlin Clark.
The league keeps harping on about boosting fan engagement, attracting more viewers, generating buzz, and filling seats. Perhaps they should start by not letting their star get slammed like she's auditioning for a wrestling match. Watching Caitlyn take hit after hit hip checks, elbows, and all-out bulldozing. It's like watching an action movie chase scene rather than a basketball game. And as for the officials, they aren't really calling the shots. They come off more like decorative mannequins with whistles. At least those cones on the court serve a purpose and don't pretend to hold authority. Ultimately, it seems the refs are there more for a workout than to make consistent fair calls. And the league office, they've remained silent, a collective shrug with no statement, no promise to investigate, as if protecting your top player is just an optional setting in the playbook. It really makes you wonder, are the decision makers even tuning into the game? Or are they just getting secondhand updates from someone using outdated tech and crossed fingers? From an outsider's view, it doesn't look like professionalism. It looks like apathy wearing a suit. If the league expects fans to show loyalty, the least it can do is lead by example. At the moment, the WNBA seems more invested in preserving its own lack of urgency than anything else.
Now, on to the fun stuff. So I don't know if you guys know, but Caitlin Clark did promise Coach Stephanie White that she would only get 2 techs for the season. And she has already received her first before the season started. No, this does not count towards the season technical fouls, but if she is promising Steph White 2 techs for the season and has already received her second tech in her second game, I wouldn't bet on her only getting 2 techs. But, you know, it is Caitlin Clark, and whatever she puts her mind to, she can usually accomplish.
Last season, Caitlin Clark and Indiana's biggest obstacle wasn't just tough competition, it was the officiating. That's right. Referees were the invisible wall nobody talks about enough. The front office took steps to rework the roster, bringing in tougher players with the hope of making a deeper run and maybe even chasing a championship. But none of those improvements will matter if the same problem lingers in the background. That problem, a pattern of refereeing that threatens to undo all the progress. Yes, there's reason to believe there's more going on than just missed calls. It feels like there's a quiet effort to hold Caitlin Clark back. She's not just any rookie, she's a once-in-a-generation star who's pulling the spotlight toward the league. But instead of celebrating her impact, it seems like she's being punished for it. The higher her profile rises, the more aggressive the targeting becomes. And where's the league in all of this? Sitting on the sidelines, letting it slide.
The offensive fouls are definitely surprising at times. I feel like I do get held.
He sold this flop perfectly. I got to tip my hat to it. Had her hand on her chest. Most people who flop, they always do the little face thing. And she sold it perfectly. I got to give it to her. Here's like a play from a different game. Watch Caitlin's reaction.
Excuse me, they got it on Caitlin Clark.
She wanted to really call out the rest.
It's almost like some folks can't handle the idea of a young rising star showing up, shattering viewership records, and daring to expect fair treatment on the court, like an actual athlete, not a walking punching bag. The whole situation is dripping with irony. After years of craving attention, the WNBA is finally under the national spotlight, and instead of seizing the moment, it feels like they're letting the whole thing spiral into an unintentional comedy sketch. Now, let's move on to something a bit more entertaining. So apparently, Caitlin Clark made a lighthearted promise to her coach, Stephanie White, about limiting herself to just 2 technical fouls for the season. But before the season even got underway, she already picked up her first one, though technically it doesn't count toward her regular season tally. Still, considering she grabbed another tech in just her second official game, I wouldn't exactly place bets on her sticking to that self-imposed limit. But hey, if anyone can do it, it's Clark. She tends to follow through when she sets a goal. And speaking of those officials, can we just take a moment to appreciate the complete lack of consistency? It's as if reason and judgment are allergic to their playbooks. One moment, a player takes a body slam straight out of a wrestling match and nothing happens. Total silence. Then a few seconds later, someone exhales too hard near the basket, and suddenly it's a full-blown whistle concert. A subtle glare earns a technical. An arched brow looks like it might trigger an ejection. It honestly feels like the refs are conducting some strange social experiment titled basketball, but with zero logic.
CC just got a technical foul for talking to the ref after a turnover led to an open Bree Jones layup. Looks like she was looking for a foul on the possession that led to the turnover. Before you ask, I don't think they count towards the 7 in a regular season, but I'm not sure. And this is the foul that she was arguing with the ref about.
It feels like the rulebook they follow was put together by a group of hyperactive squirrels on a caffeine high, flipping through endless legal documents. Or maybe it was drafted by consultants who've never actually watched an entire game, but sure have lots of PowerPoint slides about it. Let's be honest here, WNBA refereeing has transcended just being bad. It's now its own thing, somewhere between absurd comedy and psychological thriller. Think 50 Shades of Missed Calls, a surreal nightmare of whistles and questionable decisions. It's like a Netflix series you didn't ask for, but you can't look away because it's so unbelievably chaotic that you start questioning whether it's all some kind of dark comedy. The only thing consistent is the unpredictability, a true masterpiece of madness. The offensive fouls are just wild. Sometimes, I can't even help but admire the acting. A player fakes the fall so flawlessly, you have to give credit where it's due. It's always impressive when someone nails it like that, hand on their chest, looking like a true professional at the art of flopping. It's like a scene from a completely different sport. And then there's Caitlin Clark. Her reaction says it all. She was clearly ready to give the refs a piece of her mind, but what happened during her first technical foul of 2025 wasn't the typical tale of a rookie losing control. No, this is the story of a player who's finally had enough of being tossed around like a rag doll for an entire game. She didn't resort to throwing punches, shouting at the refs, or pulling off some dramatic wrestling move at midcourt. Instead, she just voiced her frustration after yet another game where the level of contact seemed more suited to a wrestling ring than a basketball court. And for that, she gets slapped with a technical foul? Really? Let's be clear here. Caitlin Clark didn't ignite the chaos. Her only crime was showing up and performing at an elite level. But somehow, in this strange storyline, she's being portrayed as the villain. It's almost mind-boggling how the WNBA turned what could have been a season to celebrate, highlighted by a standout rookie performance, packed arenas, rising viewership, and soaring merchandise sales, into a dumpster fire. And who's to blame? A group of referees who seem to be as directionless as a lost tourist without a map. Clark just got hit with a technical for speaking to the ref after a turnover led to an easy layup by Bree Jones. She seemed to be looking for a foul on the play that resulted in the turnover. To be clear, I don't think these techs count towards the total for the season, but I'm not entirely sure. The problem is, this is the same crew of refs who consistently overlook the obvious fouls on Clark, whether she's being shoved, hacked, or knocked to the floor, but when she dares to react, suddenly their whistles are out. If these refs aren't up to the task, maybe they should trade their whistles for brooms and start sweeping up the mess they've made. Clark isn't asking for special treatment, she's simply asking for a fair chance, a level playing field. Equal application of the rules should be standard, but right now, in the WNBA, the only rule that seems to hold is that everything goes when Caitlin Clark is on the court. The inconsistency is not just frustrating, it's downright embarrassing, and if the league doesn't get its act together soon, it might squander the best opportunity it's had in years. Maybe, just maybe, the league will address the issue. Perhaps the refs will undergo some much-needed training, or maybe, just maybe, pigs will fly, and those flying pigs will be more consistent with their calls. At this point, what's painfully clear is that Caitlin Clark is being treated like she's playing in a full-contact sport, and not the WNBA. Attendance for Indiana Fever games, are you serious? When it comes to the WNBA draft games on ABC and ESPN, the TV ratings were sky high, and Caitlin Clark is directly responsible for that. Yet people were holding her accountable as if she were the root cause of all the issues around lack of recognition. The truth is, she just happened to be born white. That's it. Caitlin Clark hasn't spoken out against anyone, nor has she taken away opportunities from others. In fact, she's been trying to help raise the entire league. She's the kind of player who believes in the rising tide lifts all boats mentality, and she's aiming to be that tide. It's as if every defender targets her with a sign saying, "Take your best shot here." And what do the refs do about it? They seem too busy counting popcorn kernels to notice what's going on. Clark isn't just taking tough fouls, she's being elbowed, shoved, body-checked, and even dragged as if she accidentally walked onto a hockey rink. And how does she get treated in return? A stare and a whistle that's nowhere to be heard. If this is the league's version of initiation, someone needs to dial down the aggression before we start seeing her post-game interviews from a hospital bed. To make it through a full WNBA season, Caitlin Clark might just need to suit up in armor or attach a GoPro to each ref's head just to get a fair call, because depending on the current officiating, that's the real foul.